his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I took his life.
Paramedics arrived and found her body badly swollen and bruised. Luna was taken to Leeds General Infirmary, where she died.
Prison is the last place any criminal wants to be, but for child predators, it can be a death sentence. The moment other inmates learn the truth, justice is often swift and ruthless. Here are 10 child predators who met instant justice behind bars, starting with number 10, Nelson Sanderson. On August 17, 2020, a routine prison bathroom time turned into tragedy when 26-year-old Markel Brent Sawyer, an inmate who was in prison for burglary and grand theft, attacked 79-year-old Nelson Sanderson using nothing but his fists and a padlock hidden in a sock. The attack was swift, decisive, and merciless. Sawyer had broken his skull, and Sanderson was pronounced dead after his brain swelled up.
Deliberations, a jury found Nelson Sanderson guilty of molesting 2 children.
Sanderson was no ordinary inmate. He was serving 2 life sentences for disgusting crimes against children under 12 and had spent years evading justice by fleeing the country. In 2016, he was recaptured and extradited from Nicaragua. His past had already condemned him in the eyes of the world. During Sawyer's trial, he testified that Sanderson had attempted to assault him while he was bathing, igniting a violent struggle that eventually led to Sanderson's death. Sawyer insisted he acted in self-defense. The jury seemed to agree, convicting him of manslaughter instead of murder. Number 9. Jeffrey Epstein. Few names provoke as much controversy as Jeffrey Epstein. He was the central figure in a deeply disturbing criminal case. Epstein was accused of operating a sex trafficking ring in the early 2000s, preying on young girls, some reportedly as young as 14. Epstein was well connected and had strong ties to powerful individuals, many of whom he allegedly supplied with trafficked women and young children for them to abuse. Epstein came under investigation in 2005 following reports of molesting a 14-year-old girl. Police investigations revealed that he'd sexually abused 36 girls. He was charged with procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute. Despite the mountain of evidence against him, he reached a plea deal that saw him only serve 13 months in prison.
Recent charges include allegations he sexually abused underage girls from 2002 to 2005 inside his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. When he faced similar allegations a decade ago, federal prosecutors in Florida struck a secret plea deal with Epstein. He avoided a possible life sentence in prison and spent 13 months in Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave for work 6 days a week.
Justice finally caught up with him on July 6, 2019, when he was arrested on federal charges for trafficking minors. Epstein was remanded without bail. However, on August 10, 2019, he was found dead in his cell. Authorities ruled his death as suicide by hanging, a verdict that no one really seemed to agree with. Given Epstein's deep ties to powerful figures, many questioned whether it was truly a case of suicide or if the deep state was at play. To this day, his mysterious death remains the subject of endless conspiracy theories. Number 8. Mitchell Harrison. Prison walls have long memories, and so do the men within them. At Franklin Prison in County Durham, England, 23-year-old Mitchell Harrison learned this the hard way. A predator with a long history of disturbing behavior, Harrison had sealed his fate years ago when he lured a 13-year-old girl to his apartment, ordering her to strip and sexually assaulted her twice. In prison, 2 inmates, Nathan Mann and Michael Parr, decided the system's justice wasn't enough and lured him into an empty cell. What followed was swift, brutal, and final. They used a razor blade to cut his neck and open his stomach. The inmates had planned to devour his liver, but eventually changed their minds. They were both sentenced to life imprisonment. Number 7. Liam Dean. Liam Dean was only 22 when he became a symbol of unforgivable cruelty. Fathers with new babies are often ecstatic, but not Dean. His baby girl was only 2 days old when he shook her and punched her violently in the face because the baby wouldn't stop crying. The infant sustained a fractured skull and broken bones and died in intensive care. Dean was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, but his time in prison didn't go as he planned.
Paramedics arrived and found her body badly swollen and bruised. Luna was taken to...
Behind bars, he became a target for other inmates. Dean's cellmate, 28-year-old John Westland, took it a step further and ended his life with a simple aftershave bottle. Number 6. David Kever. In July 2019, during what seemed like a routine midnight wellness check, corrections officers discovered 78-year-old David Kever unresponsive on the cell floor. His cellmate, Jimmy Ray Caruthers, had strangled Kever and stomped on his throat to confirm that he was indeed dead. As Kever lay lifeless on the floor, Caruthers stood calmly by the door, showing no sign of remorse. Kever had a dark past of preying on minors, which finally caught up to him when his cellmate brutally ended his life. However, the shocking thing about this case is that Caruthers was also a child predator. He was found guilty of sexual battery on a child in 1996 and sentenced to prison. Interestingly, he was scheduled to be released in 2 years. Maybe he figured he might abuse a child once released, so he decided to ensure that he wouldn't see the outside of the prison. Number 5. DeAndre Austin. In 2008, 46-year-old DeAndre Austin was found guilty of penetration with a foreign object with a victim under 14, sodomy, oral copulation, and lascivious conduct with a child under 14. After repeatedly abusing his 3 younger nieces over 2 years, he was sentenced to life with a probability of parole. However, his chance of parole ended 1 October when officers found him unresponsive in his cell. Their attention quickly turned to his cellmate, 29-year-old Rodney Jordan, a convicted burglar with a history of robbery, but an unwavering hatred for those who hurt children. In prison, even among the worst, some crimes are never forgiven. Number 4. Robert Huckle. Robert Huckle's story appears ordinary, but as you look deeper, you quickly realize that there is something disturbing beneath the surface. Huckle seemed like the perfect volunteer, an English teacher, a photographer capturing life in Malaysian neighborhoods, and a regular face at church. But behind this carefully crafted image was a predator using his roles to exploit children across Asia.
52 life sentences in 2016 after admitting multiple charges of sex abuse of children.
In 2016, Huckle was convicted of 71 charges of sexual offenses against minors and sentenced to life imprisonment. His crimes came to light after Australian police tracked him from a paedophile network on the dark web. They reported him to the British police, and he was arrested at the airport as he returned from one of his supposed volunteer roles in Asia. The sentence was cut short in 2019 when fellow inmate Paul Fitzgerald decided to deliver his own form of justice. He tied Huckle up, tortured and strangled him for hours. Then he sexually assaulted him with a kitchen utensil and stabbed him multiple times. The stabbing was so violent that doctors found a blade in Huckle's brain. Fitzgerald ensured Huckle's dark legacy ended behind bars, but he was sentenced to 34 years in prison. Number 3. James Palmucci. In 2020, correctional officers went to inform 48-year-old inmate James Palmucci about an oncoming court date, but instead, they met an unresponsive Palmucci with a fabric wound around his neck. Now, Palmucci wasn't exactly a model citizen. He was facing 83 charges, including lewd and lascivious molestation of children under 12. Later, investigators found some deeply troubling videos of him interacting with his victims on his phone, which only acted as evidence of his depravity. The prison declared that Palmucci had taken his own life, yet this explanation left many scratching their heads. Number 2. Robert Munger. In an ironic twist of fate, 70-year-old Robert Munger, who is serving a 43-year sentence for child molestation and possession of inappropriate child images, was sharing the same cell with Shane Goldsby, who is in prison for colliding with a police vehicle after a high-speed chase. It turned out that one of Munger's victims was Shane's own sister. Fate placed Shane face to face with the man who shattered his past, forcing him to relive the trauma every day. Munger would also tease him with the details of how he assaulted his sister. His requests for a transfer were denied, leaving him trapped in a cell block with someone he could never forgive. As tensions escalated, Shane snapped. He punched, kicked, and stomped Munger's head until he became unresponsive. After admitting to the attack, he was handed nearly 25 more years behind bars. Number 1. Theodore Dyer. For decades, Stephen Sanderson, who is in prison for murdering his partner, had accepted the harsh realities of his imprisonment without much fuss. But in 2014, 67-year-old Theodore Dyer was sent to prison for sexually assaulting a 9-year-old child. Dyer had gained the mother's trust, and she started leaving the children in his care. But everything changed one day when she walked in on Dyer molesting her kids. Enraged, she took her child and called the police.
How do you wish to plead to the second count of murder in the second degree? Guilty?
Yes, sir.
And doing so freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Doing so because you are guilty?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did-
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
But you did in fact kill him,
Oh, sure.
and you intended to kill him.
Oh, sure, yes. Well, if it's all right, I'd like to tell you where it started.
Go ahead.
All right, well, he was my bunkie, and I had found out that he was in prison for child molestation, a really bad case. So that night he was trying to justify why he did it, and I just told him to be quiet, and he would have to leave in the morning to find a new cell. But he continued to talk about it and try to justify it, so he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I...
In prison, instead of showing remorse, Dyer had the audacity to boast about his actions, telling stories of what he did day after day. At first, Sanderson tried to ignore it, but he reached his breaking point in October 2014. While the majority of the prison was still asleep, Sanderson found a shoelace and promptly strangled Dyer. What makes this story even more startling is the calm manner in which Sanderson handled the aftermath. Rather than retreating into secrecy or regret, he calmly approached a guard and confessed his actions. He was arrested and sentenced to an additional 50 years in prison. And that was 10 child predators who met instant justice in prison. What do you think? Should these prisoners who committed these crimes against such heinous criminals really have their sentences extended? Or did they deliver the justice that they finally had coming? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications for more chilling content just like this.